Wonderful. All right, everyone, thank you so much for being here today. I'm Maddy Martin. I'm the VP of Marketing at Smith.ai. We are a 24/7 receptionist service, and I'm going to talk today about, are you lawyering or laboring? The 7 steps to reduce interruptions and chores and run a more productive practice. So if you are just coming in, please message to everyone in the chat, not just me if you're comfortable, and share who you are, your practice areas, anything that speaks to topics that you'd like to learn about today or what you're looking forward to at Tech Show next week. I would be happy to touch on anything that I am knowledgeable about, in addition to the content that we have prepared for today. If you have any questions about, law firm marketing, intake, scheduling, etc. So please go ahead and introduce yourselves now while I get my presentation all set up. All right, so here we go. Let's share my screen. Here we are. Okay, wonderful. So at any point, feel free to ask questions. You can use chat, or you can use the Q&A option. And I will also, just so I don't forget, put the deck link in the chat. So no need to open that now. I'm going to present all of this to you, but you'll have both the recording and that deck link available to you. And I'll also share my email later. So if there's anything you have questions about, later on, feel free to message me. I'm very happy to respond to that. Awesome. All right, wonderful. Getting some good questions in already. Thank you so much for those. So without further ado, I introduced myself already. Before I was at Smith.ai, though, I was at 2 other startups running their marketing departments from the ground up. So even though I have not personally owned or operated a small business, I've worked in very scrappy, very tightly budgeted organizations that have some serious stakeholders, from VCs, venture backing, and high pressure situations. So I have led multiple marketing departments at this point, now been at Smith.ai for the last almost 5 years. And if you'd like to learn more about us and our specialty in working with attorneys, please visit our website at smith.ai. Now let's talk about, it's a little warm in here. I'm going to take my vest off. All right, so let's talk about today's goals and objectives, because we've got a lot of content to cover. So the learning goals are 5-fold. 1, identifying distractions and time-consuming tasks that are bogging you down throughout the day. And maybe if you have staff, your staff as well. We want to first understand the communication systems that help you manage the business side of running a law firm, or maybe they're actually tripping you up, and how can we fix those systems, including phone, text, email, website chat, all those inbound communication systems that you also might use for outbound, and then services on top of that as well, like receptionists, assistants, virtual assistants, etc. Now, the basics next is next in line. So how we're going to use these systems, and then advanced techniques for optimizing our use of these systems. Lastly, we're going to make a game plan so that we can reduce the distractions, time-consuming tasks, and regain our productivity, or get to new levels of productivity for ourselves and our staff. So what are the 7 steps that we're going to learn about? Spoiler alert, we're going to talk about managing inbound communications with smart phone systems, website chat, also texting, how to better triage new leads with capture, intake, qualification systems, and then handing off this process. Once we've documented it, we can delegate it. So handing off the new client intake process with systems and workflows. We'll also talk about streamlining appointment scheduling and reminders, how to consistently collect payments, which we know is a big time drawdown. It's an anxiety producing activity, and often it results in not reaping the revenues that are due to you. So that is often a time consuming admin task that gets neglected, or it's just a time burden. 6, we're going to systematically refer bad leads and generate better referrals, because that all comes back to us at the top of the marketing funnel and makes life easier when we have more referrals instead of more brand new leads who need a lot of hand holding. 7, is all about integrating these communication systems with your existing systems and workflows. So everything, and you'll hear me say this multiple times, really has to play well together to get that maximal efficiency and effectiveness. So who cares? Well, I'm sure that you've seen the Clio Legal Trends reports, but if you have not, first of all, I encourage that you check out the Clio Legal Trends reports. We have a number of infographics that sort of distill the most illuminating points of them, at least from our communications perspective, on the Smith.ai blog, and I'd be happy to share those with you. But really what we see is that there is a major constraint on the attorney's time, on the average attorney's time. And put a 1 in the chat if you relate to having admin time take up close to 3 hours of your time every single workday. And at the same time, that's shadowing over how much billable work gets done. And then we've got, out of those 3 hours that an attorney is on average spending on admin tasks, they're often office admin, invoicing, configuring technology, watching Zoom videos to figure out how to set something up in your system, or contacting, customer support, client support for your practice management system, setting up a call then with your account manager. There's a lot of these things that bog us down. Setting these up and the right systems up for your firm is going to pay big dividends. Now, we also know that about 2 hours a day that's not spent on billable work goes towards business development. So generating new clients is important, and we want to protect the time that is going to also generate. So if you just blasted the internet with ads, you get all sorts of different leads who aren't really good leads for your law firm. They're not really potential clients. It's just noise. So we don't want to increase noise by doing more marketing overall. We want to make sure that we have a really good idea of who a potential client is, what characteristics they exhibit. How can we ask questions to determine those, and then only go out and try and attract those viable potential clients, right? Now, when we see the interruptions that do come through, and this is often the reason why we don't pick up the phone, or why leads don't pick up the phone, is because there's a lot of noise in the day-to-day. We have interruptions that come in from, someone's, kid's teacher, or we have interruptions that come in related to a financial advisor calling, or a business partner, and then also leads and also clients. And every interruption incurs about 23 minutes. And that is time to recover from the interruption. It's time that is around the actual interruption itself, that incoming call, then resetting yourself. In the beginning and the end, you actually end up losing, if an attorney is interrupted on average 6 times a day, 2 hours that is lost per day. That's basically your 8-hour period. If we add that up, we add up business development time, admin time, billable time, that's more than 8 hours, right? Now, why does this matter? Because responsiveness is the single biggest indicator of whether or not a potential client is going to hire your firm. Let me say that again, and let me give you a statistic. Responsiveness is the single biggest indicator of whether or not you're going to get a new potential client who finds your firm to hire your firm, outside of anything you're doing with improving your sales skills, your intake, your scheduling systems. If you don't pick up that first phone call or email, then 2 out of 3 potential clients saying, look, I'm going to hire the first firm to respond. So this isn't working for me. I'm going to go to the next search result in Google, and that firm, I'm going to try them now. So all the work that you've been doing on SEO optimization and advertising and getting your brand out there, you are losing out on that return on your investment if you don't pick up the phone, if you don't have some responsive element on your website, like website chat, if you're not reachable in some way. Excuse me. So, one moment. Okay. So 59% of people on average who didn't hire an attorney, even after a consult, are coming through the funnel and creating noise as well. So we have to be super mindful that there are people who need to be screened, they need to be scheduled, they need to be mindful of who they're spending time with. A lot of people don't realize that they're going to have a consultation with an attorney and take time away from another lead by filling that spot. And that's the way that you should think about it. You should think about it as like inventory, right? So as a result, if you're not doing effective screening at the start, then you're not going to be able to actually get your calendar filled with qualified leads who deserve to have a consultation with you because they're in the right place, not because they deserve it out of being a certain type of human being. It's just there's no sense of deservedness there. It's just, is that a relevant lead for your law firm, right? With the screening needs to come before the scheduling. Now, 86% of an attorney's earnings are ever collected. To me, that's just wasted opportunity to say, look, here we are pouring our hearts and souls into our budgets and making sure we're spending really carefully, but then we're not going after the revenue that is due to you for the work that's already been done. And there's a lot of discounting that attorneys will do. The Clio report shows this every single year, that there's discounting that before it gets on the bill, and then there's discounting by saying I'm going to write off certain hours and negotiating, and then not even following up on past due payments. So it's not just about the inbound responsiveness here. It's also what systems you have in place to make sure you're on top of key communications for your business without getting bogged down by that. And I'll get into that in the next section. So the first dilemma here that we need to confront is interruptions. So we want to minimize those, but we also don't want to minimize our responsiveness. So if we're not going to pick up every single phone call, answer every email in a few moments, well, then who is going to do it, or how is it going to get done? We have to have a system in place if it's not going to be us, because our time is really precious, right? Now, the second dilemma is invoicing and chasing down late payments drain your time, but it is still important to obviously maximize your revenue. So you want to minimize time-consuming billing tasks, and you want to maximize your revenue without giving a huge cut to a collections agency. The third dilemma, you want to automate these systems and processes, but I would be shocked if anyone here has a full-time technologist on staff, full-time employee, right? If you do, that's very rare, and God bless you. Most small firms, the vast majority, do not have technology resources at their fingertips. If you happen to be a computer science major and that's your specialty, that's wonderful. But that is a rarity, right? So in a small practice, typically you have no or limited IT support, even limited admin support, someone who could go and learn how to do those things. So you can't spend all day configuring tools like we saw in the earlier statistic. It's taking up over 10% of the time. You want simple, intelligent tools. Now, the fourth dilemma, it really comes down to control. And I think if you're in a small firm, put a 1 in the chat if you are in a solo firm or less than 5 staff. What often happens, and let me know if this resonates with you, you start your firm because to some extent you want more control over your practice, over the practice of law that you're doing. You want to control the methods, the means, the focus areas, practice areas, when you work and how you work, right? But you also want to strike some work-life balance here. So you don't want to just say, look, my goal, or I'm going to prescribe to you a goal of work-life balance. I'm going to prescribe to you, when to work and how much. No, I want to prescribe just getting more control over these things, right? To everyone, this is different. Some people might like working or might be able to work 20 hours a week. Sometimes you might want to work 60 hours a week. That's up to you, but can you actually control that if you wanted to, if you had to, for your health and for your well-being, right? So the dilemma here is that you want to have this control, but you also want to let go of some control, because having so much control at this stage of your business is going to result in you being overworked, right? There's no possible way that when you first started your firm, you were having to do all these things. And that's why you're in a successful place today. You're running a firm. You're going to keep running the firm. You're not closing shop, right? You're at a point where maybe you're thinking about starting your own firm. All of those reasons that you were in control of got you where you are today. But at this point, there's an inflection point. And you have to start giving up some control and delegating in order to get to the next inflection point, to that next growth stage, okay? So when we talk about those solutions, how to adopt cost-effective and efficient systems, we're really focused on delegation and winnowing things down into that funnel, right? So routing and tracking. So what direction are things headed in? How do you take a call or email or website visitor and get them into the right place without so much manipulation or individual involvement by you? Then there's filtering, qualifying potential clients, referring out bad leads, making sure that people are following down that path that you set out for them. In terms of intake, you want to make sure that you have forms, that you have structure here, so you are operating effectively, but also efficiently. If you're operating effectively, that might look like you handling every single, lead qualification call for a potential client and asking those questions because you know them like the back of your hand, and you're going to ask those same questions every time. It's very effective. You're the owner of the firm and you know who's a good lead and who isn't. Now, is that efficient? No, because you have the highest billable rate in your firm, and you know that efficiency means being able to delegate and repeat with greater frequency and distribution, right? So scheduling is also a component here, because all of these things end up coming down to a stopping point where you've done the filtering and screening, and then they've shared some information on an intake form, and you're ready to schedule that consultation or move forward with that client and have a new client setup meeting. Those are, systems that we often overlook as being important to be shared, to be distributed, to be posted on a website, to say, how can we get calendaring into the hands of really well-qualified potential clients, into the hands of a receptionist service, or into the hands of a chat bot, so to speak, into the hands of an intake specialist. So all of these things are really important components that will solve the dilemmas that we just went through. Now, how do we identify the systems that are going to help us here with some key criteria? So these are the ways that I really look at it. And it's important to consider what this means to you. So affordable might mean different things to different people. Now, the systems being affordable is the most important, and it's the first bullet here, because if you can't afford it, you're not going to be considering all the other elements. Now, think about the cost that you have and what you can afford. Think about what you might be spending on marketing, because that is easily going to be, a small incremental increase for these systems compared to what you're spending on marketing, or what your effective hourly rate is if you're basically, giving up billable time in order to spend your own time on marketing. It's like what we call an economics opportunity cost, right? So without commitment is important here. Something might be affordable, might be $100 a month to get a practice management system, and then they lock you into a 3-year term, and you're thinking, well, I'm stuck with that cost, which over 3 years is significant, even if $100 a month is not so significant. So look at your terms. There's a lot of competition in this space, and most software and services are month to month at this point. Now, there might be discounts for longer term agreements if you're super comfortable and confident that you're going to be using the system, but I would not suggest a new system user sign up for anything beyond a month-to-month service. That's also another reason why you're not necessarily going to go hire someone, which is quite a commitment, in addition to all the benefits and taxes that you're going to pay, instead of delegating to a virtual paralegal, for example. There are a lot of great services out there for that. So think about what your commitment level is based on your experience here. If you don't necessarily know what you need a paralegal to do, it's not necessarily appropriate to hire a full-time one just to get going. You might not need that level. You might need someone to work with you almost consulting to get to a place where you have documentation and processes, and then you hire that full-time person. Then you hire that person to help you implement software and workflows. You wouldn't do that before you have the software, right? So let's think about the second thing here. So systems being customizable is really important because your firm is going to flex and grow. You might add new practice areas. you might have started out with something that is more individual based, more company based, and then more individual based. Like you might start off in trademarks and move into more individualized law. You might start off in personal injury and move into an estate practice, or family and then into estate, or estate and into immigration. Whatever the case may be, we're seeing a lot of changes with practice areas in the last couple of years with COVID. And being customizable and flexible with your solutions, can they work with other practice areas, is the easiest way to determine, is this going to be a good investment for me to learn about this solution, so I don't have to learn a whole new practice management solution, a whole new calendaring program every single time that, I want to make a change in my business. That should be, only burdened by the necessary changes to make that, update to your business. So the third thing here, easy to use and monitor. The more solutions that you have, the harder it's going to be to keep track of all of them. And if you have to create every report from scratch, if you have to know code in order to code your own report, or ask customer service to create a report for you, that's really a pain in the butt. I want to have easy to use reports, drag and drop tools. I can create my own report the same way that I could create a pivot table in Excel. It should be at my fingertips so that I have to choose different, rows and columns. I can choose different filters, and I'm able to see the data that I need to see, right? So if I'm looking at a practice management solution or an intake system, I probably want to see how many intake forms are completed, how many people move forward to become clients. And I don't want to have to reach out to an engineering team to get that information. I don't want to have to crawl through data for a day to get that information. It should be easy to use, a few clicks of the button, and I should be able to refresh that same report and get new data as I need to. In terms of being comprehensive, this really gets at the multi-touch approaches of a lot of software and solutions these days. So think of, Smith.ai is now answering calls, chats, texts, Facebook messages. That means, like, if you had 4 different solution providers, you would have them consolidated into one. I think about that similarly with practice management and calendaring and, case status updates and things like that, intake solutions, even payment workflows for new clients who sign on, and e-signature. The best solutions are the ones that are integrating these solutions into one place, so that you have a client who can schedule an appointment, they can make a deposit or pay for that consultation if it's paid, they can easily go through that appointment and then walk through an e-signature, become a client, and then have a record in your system, right? These solutions do exist. And if they don't all exist within one system, they can take information from outside systems and show them to you, right? So Clio Calendar, for example, might connect up with your Google or iCalendar, or you might use Calendly. You're going to see your calendar in Clio, right? So that is a benefit of having that solution. It's not just a siloed view of your case or practice management, right? And that means less bills, fewer bills, fewer screens open trying to monitor, your law firm. And it really helps to reduce the overwhelm that we feel when we start to add technology. So the second to last bullet here, integrate your processes, systems, and software. If you don't have software that can talk to each other, much like in the last point I was making, then it's really hard to bring into that one world view. So if I am using a practice management solution that is just operating, maybe it's like in a server in my office, maybe it's in that closet behind me, then it doesn't connect into the cloud. It doesn't talk to my calendar. It doesn't talk to my QuickBooks or payment solution or LawPay. And as a result, everything is sort of operating separately. We want to make sure that we have solutions that talk to each other. Maybe you've heard the term API. That basically means that if I have a form and it has a first name field, and I have a database that has a first name field, they're going to recognize those first name fields are connected. And when the form is completed, that first name field takes that information that was in that field in the form, right? So we have this parity here that allows our systems to talk to each other without any involvement. We just wired it up, and then it's ready to go from then on. And that means less data entry, less management, chore for you and for your staff, right? If you're having your paralegal, and this often happens in law firms, especially small law firms and solos, if you are repurposing your paralegal to be doing data entry work, to answer the phone, to do all these other things and billing work, then that's time that's taken away from their being a paralegal, right? So that's not someone who's going to stay in their job for a really long time. They're looking for a fulfilling paralegal career and they're doing admin work. So by having these software and, other systems in place, you actually get better staff retention, fewer headaches, less stress, because people can focus on really what they want to be doing, especially you and also your staff. And as you build this firm, you have the opportunity to have more control over your growth rate. And you don't have to discount the value of a new staff member like a paralegal to say, well, I'm investing in this person. I want them to bill this many hours, but really it's only 50% of that because they also have admin work to do, right? That's a really easy way to limit your growth and be mindful of that. The last thing here, so if you're adding a human system, like a receptionist service, a virtual paralegal service, you want them to have some reasonable discretion and actually really tap into their expertise, because often what happens is there is outsourcing and then there's this huge burden of expectations that gets placed onto that person or service's lap. And you think, well, you're just going to answer calls, just do it properly. Well, often what's happening is that those expectations are limited by how much discretion is actually given. So there's very firm rules, but then there's not a lot of conversation back and forth to say, here's a scenario we were in. Let's say you have a virtual paralegal. Here's a scenario. I don't really know how to handle this. And you're thinking, well, you're the paralegal, figure it out. Or I told you how to do this, or read the manual or something. That person doesn't necessarily have discretion or permission from you to figure something out. So teach about what your goals are, what you're looking for, and help build up that trust and understanding so that you can feel comfortable giving someone discretion, because that's where really the gains are. If you just have someone who's basically robotic, then they're not going to be able to flex and be intuitive in those situations where it really counts, that can't be written into any manual necessarily. So let's talk about terms and definitions. So obviously we have different systems at our disposal, and I'm going to move past this section pretty quickly, but we've got obviously landlines, we have VoIP phone systems that are in the cloud. We also have soft phone systems. For example, if I'm on my computer and I want to download a phone app, those exist, and I can work from my computer and I can make calls from my computer. I don't need a separate phone, whether it's connected to the cloud or a landline. Now, if you are currently using a system like a Google Voice or where is that slide? Google Voice or something that has a lot of ring delays, I would encourage that you move to a solution like a phone.com or Ring Central or an established VoIP phone system so that you can take it wherever you go. It's infinitely scalable, easy to add another line, open another office location. And there are landline phones that will work with these VoIP phone numbers if you need them to, if you like that, physical presence of that phone on your desk. If you do nothing else after this presentation, make sure that you audit your phone system. So what often happens is there are ring delays, there's latency, and phone calls are coming through and they're ringing 5, 6, 7, 8 times, if you can believe it, and it's ringing you once by the time they've already heard 8 rings. That's a new potential client. That's maybe an existing client who's trying to reach you. And that is a result of your phone system not working properly. And you can actually reach out to your phone system and tell them that that's not working, and they can try and fix that for you. But you only know it's happening if you actually secret shop your phone. So get a friend to call your business, to call your main number, to call your direct number, whatever is set up with your phone system, and have them count the number of rings. And then you count the number of rings that you're hearing from that first ring. If they tell you that they heard 8 rings before you heard I picked up on the first ring, you heard 1, then you've got a problem and you have to reach out, right? Because you have people who are calling you who are not your friend who are not waiting 8 rings to hear you. And look, if it's no problem, you hear 2 rings and you've got, 1, ignore it. That's not a big deal. It's probably your call tracking system if you have CallRail or what converts in place. If you have a receptionist service, it might even click over with 1 ring to do that transfer to the service. But many, many rings and then only 1 ring for you means that people are probably hanging up before you even answer. And as a result, you might be picking up and hearing dead silence. You might have calls that are going to voicemail, even though the phone didn't ring. You're wondering how in the world are these things happening? It's because of a connectivity issue, right? And your phone system should try and fix that. If they can't, then move to a different phone system. There are dozens of them, and I'd be happy to make some recommendations to you, including what I already mentioned, which is phone.com, Ring Central, and also Dialpad, another fantastic one, but there are lots. Now, I mentioned sort of the limited utility if we're not using discretion with, people who are humans who are on the phones. And if I go back 1 slide, this is really because there are people who are being programmed to follow a script. And then there are people who really have some discretion, like an in-house staff person would, to handle the calls, have some sensitivity, and also handle the volume that's coming through as well. So if you have dedicated receptionists, let's say 1 in-house or several on a team that you've outsourced to, and you improve your marketing efforts, you increase the spend, you've got more volume coming through. There is going to be a delay and there's going to be some dropped calls if you just have 1 or 2 dedicated resources, maybe even 3 or 4. Not everyone's in the office all the time, nor running 24/7. So that's quite a sizable team if you want all your calls answered 24/7. Also have to think, like, if this is operating while I'm sleeping, they need a workflow and a process and answers to common questions, not just a script. Why? Because that lead doesn't know the script. They're going to ask questions that are phrased in funny ways. They're going to have to clarify. They're going to have to not share their entire life story with a little bit of control from the person on the other end who coaches them through that conversation. This is someone who's reaching out to a law firm, to a law practice, and they are not the attorney. They're the potential client. They don't know what to expect. Most times they've never worked with another attorney. They might not even be sure that they're going to work with an attorney for this matter. And they need to feel like they're being heard and not shepherded through a script. And if they get off script, that person on the other line has an understanding and not just, steps to follow so that they can properly handle that conversation. So often that's why we're reluctant to outsource and even to automate, because we think, well, we can't see, every scenario that's going to come up. That comes up when we're evaluating software. It also comes up when we're evaluating systems and solutions. So email systems, we're very familiar with these systems. A few things that I would recommend is that if you find yourself sending the same messages over and over again, check out tools for either bulk emailing like Mailshake or yet another mail merge, where you just need the first name to populate. You can send these things repeatedly. Maybe you're out of office for Easter, which is coming up. Maybe you were just out of office for President's Day, whatever the case may be. If you're sending a lot of individual emails, have templates. Gorgeous is a really fantastic tool for that. It will plug into Gmail and other work email products. And obviously there's Text Expander, and there are short codes on your phone that you can program. It's basically a library, like a dictionary, so that if you tap CC in a message on Facebook because someone recommended you or referred you, then your consultation calendar comes up with a message of how to book time. So things like that, if you're spending a lot of your time, your thumbs are tired from typing on your phone and Facebook all the time from all the referrals that you're getting, these are really, routine, repeated tasks that can be optimized, even in something as like, old and dull as email, can move a lot faster. And if you give these templates to your team, here is the rejection, not a good fit email for a potential client who's outside of your practice areas. Make sure that if you have contact forms on your website, that you have an email wired up to that to say, thank you, we received your information. Someone from our team is going to reach out to you, or just forward that right to your team or receptionist service for an immediate callback. There are a lot of rules that can be put in place here to make you more responsive to emails without you personally having to go through your inbox. Right now, any email delegation should obviously follow the rules of conduct and make sure that it is ethical to give any access to your email. And typically that's another vote for software automation here. If you are also individually emailing everyone, you don't yet have a newsletter or email list where you're taking these emails, obviously with their permission, which you should have wired up into the contact form on your site that says, by submitting this form, you agree to outreach from us unless you unsubscribe. Have these newsletters go out, have updates from your firm, cover news, cover recent client stories that they're willing to share. Cover your opinion on the latest rules that affect people who you're helping in your practice area. These are all opportunities to show value through email and not just feel burdened by it. Text messaging, if you don't have a text-enabled phone number, this is one of the most important areas where you can actually have more responsiveness just at like the click of a button. What you can do through ZipWhip is add texting to an existing landline number. You can also, with tools like Time Miner, have your text with clients, if they're texting you, get logged into their bill so that time is not just wiped from the record, but actually logged in the record in your system so that you can keep track of the time that you're spending texting with clients. That might be a great channel for you. We know a lot of integration attorneys, for example, are using WhatsApp, but that's not a great way to keep track of your time. And it's an easy way to lose revenue by, letting them have that loophole for messaging their attorney without actually having it be a billable call. Website chat, often we think of, website chat as chatbots, but often it can also be a great engagement tool. If you think about your website, just, imagine your website in your mind. You don't have to go visit it right now. Think about where is my website search? Oh, right, it doesn't exist. My website doesn't have search because a lot of small business websites don't have search. If you have search on your website, you are in rare form, and kudos to you. But most people are looking to get answers through chat because that's basically the search on any website. And it gets quick answers. It can also weed out unqualified leads, and it can test sincerity because we know that if you're providing your email and your phone number, maybe even so your name and email, maybe even your phone number, that you are a more sincere lead than the average website visitor, right? You also have the opportunity to add disclaimers before a chat begins, which we recommend. You have the opportunity to give someone a platform without taking up the time to listen to all of that information. And they may not need to call, or they may be scheduled for a call, but this is a nonverbal communication, that non-audible communication that a lot of people prefer these days. And what we see is for every 4 calls that you get 1 net new lead through chat, which means they wouldn't have otherwise called. It's net new, right? So you're looking at a 25% improvement in your lead growth. And these are people who are already there. They just didn't have chat as an available resource to them. It's not with any new marketing spend. That person was already on your website. They're just going to engage with you because they see chat now. And when we think about all the kids who are home, multi-generation households with elderly parents or grandparents, and we think, man, there are conversations that are happening that would be overheard by phone, or even as people go back to workplaces now, they don't necessarily want their colleagues to hear about their upcoming separation or child custody matter or immigration matter. They want to have a silent communication with a potential law firm and feel like it's not going to be overheard, or it's not inappropriate or impossible. I mean, in cases where there is domestic violence, imagine being overheard on that phone call, right? So website chat and also texting is a really important resource that every law firm should consider implementing, and also outsourcing, because whether it's a chatbot, whether it's live staffed on your behalf, it's not something that you need to be responsible for. Obviously, you're accountable for it as a law firm owner, but you're not directly responsible for all those messages that come through. So it can also be a great way to get access to blog posts, help docs, and information about how your law firm works. This is Kim Bennett. She runs a virtual law practice, and I'm sure you imagine the top questions that come through from potential clients for you. It might not be what is a virtual law practice, but it might be how long do I have to wait for a divorce in the state of California? And you've got an article all about, is that going to be 6 months or 12 months or whatever the case may be. And that's information that might guide someone's decision whether or not to have a conversation with you. That's also really important to know what their timing is when you go and have a conversation with them. You can look back at that whole transcript and find out, all right, well, this is important to you. That's a starting point in the conversation. When we think about how potential clients are handled, we also want to think about in-house staff versus software. These are things that I've touched on. I talk about talent and I talk about tech. These are the two divisions. And what we think of when we think of tech and talent is, well, how do we leverage human and machine intelligence here to run a better law practice? Now, an easy example is MailChimp. Let's say that I go into MailChimp, which is my email management system, and I'm going to send a newsletter, and I'm going to write all the content. That's my own intelligence, hopefully, and I'm thinking of the right words to say, the right articles to share that have been on the Smith.ai blog, whatever. And then MailChimp is going to ask me, when do you want to send it? And I'm going to say, well, when do you think I should send in MailChimp? Because they have that person's email in probably 100 of their lists across all of MailChimp, and anonymously, they can identify them and the time that they open their emails, because MailChimp knows, just like Google knows things. And they can tell me, based on your list, we're going to send each individual person the email at a different time based on when they're going to open it. That is something I don't have time to do. 7,000 emails that I'm going to send out. I couldn't possibly do that by myself, but I'm going to see my open rate, the exposure and engagement to that email skyrocket when I use tools like that, right? So that's such a clear indication to me that, like, how could I not do that if I have that tool available? When we think about the funnel, there are a lot of opportunities to get that same sort of improvement, and we're going to go through that now. So just to back up for a second, the funnel is basically how we generate and capture leads. So the different sources that we're using to capture leads. So review sites, social media, SEO, we're doing content, we're writing blogs, we're asking for referrals, we're doing talks to potential estate firm clients or immigration clients, et cetera. And then they're contacting us or we're reaching out to them. And the person who is responsible for getting that, call or making that call could be an attorney, but hopefully it's someone who's down the line or outsourced, and they're going to qualify that person to be a potential client. Just because you came in through one of those channels, you search for something online, doesn't mean you're in the right neck of the woods. It doesn't mean you have the budget, the time, et cetera. So then we come to intake, right? And we might not go right to the agreement, as we know, after intake, after a consult, because people are not necessarily ready to move and they need a little nurturing and follow-up. For those who are not qualified, they might be a good source of potential clients in the future, or they might themselves be a good potential client in the future. So we want to be really kind to them, give them referrals, and have them not go all the way back to their Google search. Now, I talked a lot about phone systems already, but it's important that you have access to your phone system when you're not in the office, at least for monitoring and to make sure that you can delegate the work. If you have a team, you can blast or set sequences up so that if one person's not available, the next person in the line is tried, and maybe you're the last person in the line instead of being the first as you might be now. Now, when that contact is made and we have a call happen, then we want to automate lead capture and qualification, because you're not going to be the person who's screening all the potential clients. You are doing the consultations. you're making it rain, you're bringing in the business, you're forging referral relationships, you're teaching CLEs, you're building your business, you're working with your marketing team, etc. You're doing client work. You're going to court and trial. You're so busy, right? Someone has to do this for you. And what you need to determine are only a few things. You need to determine the criteria for the best quality leads and how to handle the consultations if they are going to come through that next step for a consult. You want to think about who were the best clients that I worked with recently, who were not the best clients that I'd avoid, and who are those clients that I missed out on that had some indicators that I knew intuitively, just based on my experience, that they were really going to be a good potential client for me, but I missed out on them. All of those reasons that they would be a good client or not a good client, you have to write down and map it out as 5 or 10 questions, why they're a good fit or not. Now, these questions are, obviously, you're going to ask contact information. We're not talking about that. We're talking about where are you located, if you're close to a state border, perhaps, or you need to make sure that it's within your jurisdiction and you're willing to, travel out that far if it requires travel. If it is the right time, if they have the budget, obviously the right practice area. Is this an area where you want to be growing or shrinking your practice? And then are you trying to aggressively grow or improve your work-life balance? Because you're going to be pickier if you're trying to improve your work-life balance. You're going to be pickier if you're trying to reduce like the burden of caseload on your firm. You're going to be less picky if you just hung your shingle, if you're trying to build up your business, if you open another satellite office, etc. Maybe you're hiring new attorneys, you need to keep them busy, keep that engine running and getting those leads through, you're going to be less picky. So balance sort of that completeness with the cost and necessity. So are you asking too many questions up front? Well, that's going to be precious time that you're taking away from that consultation when it happens. Don't need to discuss everything. And it also makes it easier to delegate it. If you're in personal injury, if you have a website chat, you can have document upload options. So here's a photo of, the car damage, etc. There might be some other documentation that's required, and those can be provided at the time of intake or at the time of consultation. We have one example here actually that I like to use just because this is a really simple intake form. And again, this whole deck is available to you. And what I love here is that there's an intake form and then there is a calendaring solution. And if we say, okay, is this like focused on the practice area? Yes. Family law or social security disability or other, right? You might not even have other. If it's just those two and it's neither one, then you can't even complete the form. However, this attorney might say, look, if it is other, write it in. Our team reviews it and we make proactive referrals for you if we don't handle this type of matter, which builds relationships in our community. Is there a court hearing scheduled? So we're finding out, all right, what is the timing here? Because if there's a court hearing already scheduled, well, I would also say, let's put a date field in there and get the actual court date of when it's scheduled. So we have an idea of if it's tomorrow or not. Now, there are alternative ways, which I don't have time to cover right now, but you can actually have some government forms like eviction notices that are made available on your website that people can download, they can fill them in using form mapping software and actually get a lot of information from potential clients and do them a service by helping them fill out that form and then asking them, because you know that they were on your site for a specific reason. Then when you reach out, you can say, how did that go? Did you evict that tenant? Do you need any help? And they're not going to look at any other firm but yours because you're already doing them such a service, right? So that's a great way to use search engine optimization and content to generate leads, while also being mindful that anyone who comes to your website, they're not just there to consume content, they should be there to determine if they're a good fit for booking a time on your calendar if they pass those criteria. So you can use Calendly or Acuity. There are a lot of great tools here to have a booking link on your website. It doesn't have to be anything fancy to embed it on your website. It can just be a link that goes to your Calendly page and you're able to see a few questions and open times on your calendar. Now, the times on your calendar are set up by you when you sign up for Calendly or whatever. So if you say Calendly only show noon to 5 p.m. or noon to 3 p.m. or 1 to 3 p.m., those are the times that I'm available for consultations, Monday through Friday. Fine. Calendly will only show the available times within that bracket, right? They're not seeing anything on your calendar. This is a huge benefit to other people, including coworkers and court staff and business partners, to be able to book time with you as well, even with different calendar types, and even for individual attorneys on your firm. And this is a link that can be shared with not only, website visitors, also through website chat, also through text, also through your Facebook page or TikTok video messages if you're on TikTok. This is a link that works everywhere, and it's a universal link. What we can see is that there might even be a hub page for multiple calendar types, as we can see with what used to be Nickel Law Offices, now Colorado Lawyer Team. The initial phone consult for clients, another phone conference for clients or other attorneys, court staff, discovery review, a PSG hearing preparation, etc. What we can see is that it is branded, it is clear what that meeting is about, and even for the phone consultation, they are 30 minutes free, and then additional time can be purchased for a rate of $300 per hour. We can see that. If you charge for consultations, it's really important to get that up front, and also make sure that you're not in the paid consultation business, you're in the lawyering business. So it's not about making money. It's about protecting your time. And if that is something that is a reasonable norm in your market, in your practice area, in your region, then I would encourage you to use that, as long as you're comfortable, A, with some people being turned off by it, because they will be, and B, giving the option potentially to have that be a credit on the first invoice to reduce the chances that the best qualified leads are turned off by it. Now, one other example that I like to give here is for outbound follow-up calls. It is absolutely critical to have that calendaring link available, because you can imagine that someone who filled out the form on your website, who said, I'm interested in talking to you, family law attorney, I'm looking for a divorce. Well, they get busy. They've got their boss breathing down their neck about some deadline, just like the rest of us, feel pressure about life things, and that impedes our ability to move projects forward, even if that's a divorce. They're busy, right? And as a result, they might not follow through on scheduling that meeting. Maybe they need to check with someone and they don't actually do it. So as a result, you're in a position, or your team is in a position, to chase down these leads. Now, what happens when they chase down this lead and they don't have a calendar link to use? They're then going to try and schedule time with you, maybe warm transfer the call to you. Who says you're available then? We're talking about reducing interruptions and having more control over your day. Well, they're following up 6 times in order to actually realize if that lead is viable or not 2 or 3, but 6, to see that's actually when the lead is going to convert by, or probably not at all. They reach them, let's say, on that 6th time. And that person says, thank you so much for chasing me. I've been extremely busy, and I'm so glad that you didn't forget about me. Seriously, they're not thinking that it's annoying. They would tell you to stop if it were annoying, and they haven't, right? So they're grateful. And then as a result, you say, great, I'm so excited. Let's get you in touch with the attorney. And then you can't get them in touch with the attorney, and you keep playing phone tag. The other scenario is, great, I have time available at 2 p.m. today. Can I schedule that for you? Yes, great. You'll talk to attorney Jane then. Done. They're going to show up to that call. They're going to have a wonderful consultation. They're going to be in the right place, hire the firm, etc. If you don't have that calendar link, you don't get to that completion of that workflow, right? So step 5 here, consistently collecting payments. If you have an online link, as LawPay, as HeadNote, as many other online payment solutions offer, make sure that you get that to your frontline team, so that anyone who is doing outreach, collecting on unpaid invoices, collecting on consultation fees, can capture that payment up front, and that's not an admin task that you have to do either during a consultation or afterwards, feeling like your own admin. It's also important that you really systematically think about your referrals, maybe even have some referrals on your website and have a list of firms that you recommend for various practice areas in certain areas, certain regions. I have some resources here that you can review. I would really encourage you to make sure that you are not monetizing referrals. If you're not able to in your state, it does vary a little bit. And read some of the discussions around this, even maybe in other states, to understand where the guidance is and best practices for making referrals even without immediate monetary gain. People will even write you a 5-star review on Google because you were so helpful to them in making recommendations to other firms. It doesn't have to be the case that you are winning clients and that's where all the benefit to your business is. So think a little bit more holistically here, and there's a lot of benefit that's available to you. And then also think, how can I take logs of the activities that are going through my system? So is there a chat transcript? Is there a call summary that's in a system that can then go into my CRM or practice management system? So for example, if Smith.ai is answering calls for a firm, we will provide a call summary. If we're answering chats, we'll provide a chat transcript. And then that is actually going into Clio, Practice Panther, MyCase, Lawmatics, wherever it is. And that is getting logged under that contact record, or creating a contact record if one doesn't already exist for that new lead, so that it's easily accessible. You're not sorting through your email, trying to find that call summary. And you see, as soon as you have that consultation, can pull up that record and then just easily turn that into a new case, a new matter, a new contact or client, et cetera. So what we're doing here is we're reducing data entry chores. We are reducing admin time. We're reducing typographical errors by just taking the information that already exists and dropping them into the appropriate system, so that one place where all those records exist is whole, is up to date in real time, right? Some extra resources here about call recording and dictation software, which we don't have a ton of time to go through. But the last thing I'll mention here is with integrating your systems is just to make sure that you are measuring the impact of your various growth channels with your systems of record. So for example, at Smith.ai, for handling calls, we want to be able to just demonstrate the effectiveness of these calls. We want to show what actions were taken, and then in your CRM to see with a call summary and a consultation that's scheduled. Okay, well, when did that happen? Is that traced back to a marketing campaign? And where did that lead come through? Was it a referral? If it was a marketing campaign, was it Facebook or Twitter or LinkedIn? Was it a YouTube video you did? That information can be captured at that time of the call and then seen more holistically, more big picture, with a monthly view, with a quarterly view, with a yearly view, to see like, well, how much noise and spam am I getting versus how many new leads versus how many existing clients are still calling for work updates when we gave them a client portal, et cetera. So this will help you identify where there's room for improvement. Are you seeing the ratio you expect of new lead calls with appointments scheduled? That might cause you to look at your marketing mix and say, well, why aren't more new leads scheduling time on my calendar? How can I audit this and make improvements? And you can only do that when you have access to this data. So in terms of homework, how do we track our time? Well, we just write it down like, old times. Getting back to low tech for a second, just track your time. You can use a time tracker. You can use a notepad. You're only doing it for a week. You're keeping track of all your time, not just billable time. Leadership in the business, neither. What's non-billable time? And then you are identifying from those neithers, because leadership you can't cut and billable time you can't cut unless you're going to hire another attorney or associate or bring on a partner. The neither is the stuff that's neither billable nor leadership, and that you should either continue doing yourself if you have to, and being honest with yourself there, why you're saying you have to, streamline it, automate it, or outsource it. And you can only outsource what you have documented. So those are the steps that come first. You want to identify the questions on your intake form before you assign someone completing an intake form on the phone with a client. And I would even do some trial runs to make sure that that form works, to make sure that you catch those hiccups in the conversation so that person knows what to do in those scenarios, even if it can't be baked into that form. Think about the Eisenhower decision matrix here and be mindful of prioritizing fixes by the greatest urgency and importance, and not just what's going to give you an endorphin hit by making some small changes or exploring new tech and software. Now, typically, the client check-ins are, I think I actually have this here. Qualification and payments are most often time-consuming and most easily outsourced. And then data entry and lead follow-up are most easily automated. So think about those lead nurturing drips and emails. You write them once, and then they run based on triggers. Like it's been 2 days since the intake form came through and they haven't scheduled an appointment yet, or maybe they had an appointment and they haven't responded since then. So implement your new forms and processes in the next 30 to 60 days. Delegate, and then see what were the effects of these changes, waiting 1 to 2 months to restabilize before making more changes, and really keeping either a document or a spreadsheet or a journal on the changes that you saw. So qualitative and quantitative are, what are the savings? What are the earnings? How many leads are you getting? What's the quality of the leads? How's your work-life balance? How's your stress level and sleep quality? Really think like, are these things improving and moving the needle in the right direction? And then you can go ahead and make new changes once you have your new baseline. So to this end, there are a couple free resources here to help you identify and implement action steps: the communication playbook and the library that has some email templates and phone templates for you. And I am, of course, reachable at Maddy at Smith.ai. And if you are still here with me and you have a moment, I'd be happy to explain how Smith.ai works with live agents and AI. We basically disposition and prioritize each call and can determine the spam callers up front, so we don't even waste our own agents' time with them, never build for them, and only focus on qualifying new leads and making sure that existing clients and partners and court staff are well taken care of with the appropriate priority. Meaning if the court staff is calling and asking, where is your client? Or it's been, the court date's been rescheduled, you would focus on getting the attention of the attorney stat. Now, existing clients are really proud of the comprehensive services and streamlined workflows that we offer, including 24/7 North America-based agents who sound just like in-house, but have the AI backbone with Smith.ai technology that allows them to be extremely efficient and effective, and the connection to your solution. So after every call, chat, text, you're in the loop, even though you're not involved. These are custom workflows that work with every type of practice area. We also do work outside of legal, but probably about 80% of our clients are attorneys. So we do specialize in that, and we have a unique ability to handle law firm leads and clients sounding in-house. Now, obviously, there is no risk with a month-to-month plan with a 14-day money-back guarantee and easy, predictable per call or per chat pricing, which means you're not pouring through your bill trying to figure out how many minutes you've spent on lead calls this past week or month. You easily can see how many calls came through, looking back to that dashboard that I shared a few minutes ago. And you have dedicated account managers to make sure that you're getting the most out of your services and the integrations that we offer. So if you're interested, we would love to chat with you. Getting started is as easy as 1, 2, 3. Just customize instructions, tell us what you are looking to do, send your calls to us. We can even provision you a phone number if you're just using your cell phone, and then you would try us risk-free for 14 days. So the code, by the way, is ABA 100, ABA 100, 100, and I will put that in the chat. And that will get you $100 off your first month. And for anyone who asked about the source of the statistics, for the first few, that was Clio Legal Trends Reports. And I would be happy to answer any questions that you have about individual sources there. We spent a lot of time looking at legal industry trends. And if I can quickly pull up that website, I will grab that for you so you don't have to go Googling and hunting for it yourself. Here we go. Legal trends reports. Perfect. So hopefully this is useful to you. There are many past years, and they do oftentimes say a lot of the same data, but in many ways it's improving. So technology adoption has improved, and you'll notice that there are a lot of efficiencies that small firms are realizing at much faster paces than large firms. So there's a huge advantage there. Hopefully this has been beneficial to you. It was a pleasure, being able to present to you today. And if you have any questions, feel free to reach out to me. I'm just going to put my email in the chat. There you go. And I will also share the link to book a consultation with Smith.ai so that we can be of service to you if you are interested in chatting with us. We're happy to just chat with you, talk through your systems, talk through existing solutions you're considering or using or really want to move away from. Even if you have a transition in your firm where you are looking to hire or you have just lost maybe a paralegal or someone, we know that it's very hard to hire people right now. We hire many, many receptionists every week. So we have a lot of hopefully advice to share with you with respect to what to prioritize, how you can build more efficiency in your firm and run a more productive practice.